Did you know that Earl Hamner Jr.'s forgotten family drama was canceled for a variety show hosted by a pop icon, featured future tennis champions and Hollywood legends before they became famous, and even employed the author of The Last Unicorn as a writer? From mid-season cast replacements to bizarre merchandising decisions, here are 15 surprising facts about the short-lived series that tried to be the modern-day Waltons. Fact 1. Hamner cloned his own hit. When Earl Hamner Jr. created Apple's Way in 1974, he wasn't exactly breaking new ground. The show was essentially a modern remake of his own wildly successful series, The Waltons, which was still airing on CBS at the same time. Both shows followed the same formula, a wholesome family navigating life's challenges together while living in a close-knit community. The main difference was the setting. Instead of Depression-era Virginia in the 1930s, Apple's Way took place in contemporary 1970s Iowa. The Apple family, led by architect George Apple, moved from Los Angeles back to rural Appleton, just like John Walton Sr. had kept his family rooted in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Both patriarchs were gentle, wise father figures who guided their children through moral lessons. Both shows featured large families with multiple children of varying ages, a strong mother figure, and storylines centered on community values and traditional American ideals. Even the narrative structure was identical, with voiceover narration and heartwarming resolutions to each episode's conflicts. Critics noticed the similarities immediately, with some calling it the Waltons and Bell Bottoms. Hamner made no secret of his intentions, essentially admitting he was replicating what worked. The gamble was whether audiences would embrace a second helping of the same wholesome family drama, just with different names and a more modern wardrobe. Fact 2. Kristy McNichol's secret replacement role. Most viewers didn't realize that the girl playing Patricia Apple in later episodes was actually a different actress than the one who started the series. Franny Michelle originated the role of the Apple family's daughter when the show premiered in February of 1974. However, by the fall of that same year, she was quietly replaced by 12-year-old Kristy McNichol, who would go on to become one of television's biggest teen stars. McNichol took over the part with no explanation given to audiences, simply appearing in Patricia's place as if nothing had changed. This was actually McNichol's first regular role on a television series, giving her valuable experience in front of the camera even though the show itself wasn't successful. The role lasted only one season before Apple's Way was canceled in January of 1975, but it served as a launching pad for McNichol's career. Just 2 years later, she landed the role that would make her famous. Buddy Lawrence on the hit ABC drama Family, which earned her 2 Emmy Awards for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Drama Series. The switch from Michelle to McNichol was never publicly explained by the producers, leaving fans to speculate whether it was due to creative differences, scheduling conflicts, or simply a desire to recast the role with a more experienced young actress. Fact 3. The Last Unicorn author wrote an episode. Among the staff writers hired for Apple's Way was someone who seems completely out of place on a wholesome family drama. Peter S. Beagle, the fantasy author best known for writing The Last Unicorn. Beagle, whose 1968 novel about a unicorn's quest to find her lost kin became a beloved classic of fantasy literature, contributed at least one script to the series during its brief run. This was during a period when Beagle was doing television work to pay the bills between his more literary projects. His involvement with Apple's Way came just a few years before he would write the screenplay for Ralph Bakshi's animated adaptation of Lord of the Rings, which was released in 1978. It's unclear which specific episode Beagle wrote, as television writing credits from that era weren't always thoroughly documented, but his name appears in the show's credits. The pairing of a fantasy writer with a down-to-earth family drama might seem odd, but Beagle was a versatile writer who understood character and emotion, skills that translated across genres. His work on the show remains one of the more surprising footnotes in both the series' history and Beagle's own diverse career, which spanned novels, screenplays, and television scripts across multiple decades. Fact 4. Vincent Van Patton's double career launch. Vincent Van Patton, who played 16-year-old son Paul Apple, wasn't just acting during the show's run. He was simultaneously pursuing a serious tennis career that would eventually overshadow his work on television. Van Patton came from a show business family as the son of actor Dick Van Patton, but he had developed a genuine passion and talent for professional tennis. While filming Apple's Way, he was already competing in junior tournaments and training intensively. After the show ended in 1975, Van Patton shifted his focus almost entirely to tennis, turning professional and competing on the international circuit throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s. His hard work paid off spectacularly. In 1979, he reached a career-high singles ranking of 26 in the world, making him one of the top players globally. His most famous victory came in 1981 when he defeated the legendary John McEnroe, then one of the best players in the world, at a tournament in San Francisco. Van Patton continued playing professionally until the mid-1980s, earning over $700,000 in prize money during his career. He later transitioned into poker commentary and hosting, but his dual success as both a television actor and world-ranked athlete remains remarkable. Few child actors have achieved such high-level success in a completely different field. Fact 5. Replaced by Cher's variety show, Apple's Way met an unusual end when CBS pulled the plug mid-season in January of 1975. But what replaced it was even more surprising, a variety show hosted by pop superstar Cher. The network had clearly decided that wholesome family drama wasn't working in that time slot and opted for something completely different. Cher, the solo variety show that took over Apple's Way's Sunday night slot, featured the singer performing musical numbers, comedy sketches, and celebrity guest appearances. This was actually Cher's second variety show for CBS. She had previously co-hosted the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour with her then-husband, Sonny Bono, from 1971 to 1974, which had been a massive hit. After their divorce, CBS gave Cher her own solo series, using Apple's Way's Cancellation as an opportunity to bring her back to the network. The stark contrast between the two shows couldn't have been more dramatic. Apple's Way offered gentle stories about a family adjusting to small-town life, while Cher's show featured elaborate Bob Mackie costumes, disco music, and contemporary celebrity culture. The replacement symbolized a shift in CBS's programming strategy, moving away from rural and family-oriented content toward more urban, sophisticated entertainment aimed at younger demographics. Ironically, Cher's variety show would also be short-lived, lasting only 2 seasons before being canceled in 1977. Fact 6. The iconic tree protest episode. The very first episode of Apple's Way established the show's environmental and community-focused themes with a memorable protest scene that became the series' defining moment. In the pilot, George Apple, played by Ronnie Cox, discovers that the town council plans to cut down a massive old tree that his ancestors had planted generations earlier. Rather than accept this decision, George climbs up into the tree and refuses to come down, staging a one-man sit-in to save this piece of his family's history. As word spreads through the small town of Appleton, neighbors and townspeople gradually join him in support, gathering around the base of the tree in solidarity. The scene culminates with George pulling out a guitar and leading everyone in a sing-along, creating a communal moment that embodied the show's message about the importance of tradition, environmental preservation, and standing up for what you believe in. This tree protest wasn't just a plot point, but a statement about the show's values, positioning George Apple as a gentle activist who could inspire his community through peaceful resistance. The scene resonated with viewers who were living through the early environmental movement of the 1970s, when concerns about development and ecological preservation were entering mainstream consciousness. For a show that ran only 2 seasons and has largely been forgotten, this pilot episode's tree protest remains its most memorable and frequently cited moment. Fact 7. Pre-Charlie's Angels, Farrah Fawcett. Guest starred. 2 years before she became one of the most famous faces in America, Farrah Fawcett appeared on Apple's Way in a role that showcased her acting abilities rather than just her looks. In the episode titled The First Love, which aired during the show's first season, Fawcett played Jane Houston, a 26-year-old woman who catches the eye of teenage Paul Apple, played by Vincent Van Patton. The storyline dealt with the complicated emotions of a teenager developing romantic feelings for an older woman, a surprisingly mature topic for a family drama in 1974. At the time of filming, Fawcett was a working television actress, picking up guest roles on various shows, building her resume one episode at a time. She had appeared on series like The Partridge Family and The $6 Million Man, but she was far from a household name. That would all change in 1976 when she was cast as Jill Monroe on Charlie's Angels, a role that would make her an international superstar and cultural icon. Her appearance on Apple's Way represents that interesting moment in an actor's career where they're still considered a guest star rather than the main attraction. Looking back, it's fascinating to see Fawcett in a small role on a forgotten family drama just before her massive breakthrough, demonstrating that even future superstars had to work their way up through the television system. Fact 8. Teen idol Leif Garrett appeared twice. Before Leif Garrett became one of the biggest teen idols of the late 1970s, with screaming fans and hit records, he was a working child actor, taking whatever television roles came his way. Garrett appeared in 2 different episodes of Apple's Way, playing characters both named Harold, specifically Harold in one episode and Harold Pearson in another. These small guest roles were typical for young actors in that era, who would bounce between different shows playing various characters as they built their careers. Garrett was only 13 years old during Apple's Way's run, still several years away from the fame that would consume his teenage years. By 1977, he had transitioned from acting to music, releasing a series of pop albums that made him a sensation among teenage girls. Songs like I Was Made for Dancin' and Feel the Need turned him into a magazine cover fixture and concert attraction. His appearance on Apple's Way is now a curious footnote, showing him as just another child actor in the early 1970s, before the teen idol machinery transformed him into a phenomenon. Like Farrah Fawcett's appearance on the show, Garrett's episodes capture a moment before stardom when future celebrities were still grinding through the television guest star circuit, one small role at a time. Fact 9. A working grist mill was their home. The Apple family didn't live in a typical suburban house or farmhouse. Their home was something far more unusual, an actual working grist mill, the kind of structure that historically ground grain into flour using water-powered millstones. This distinctive setting gave the show a unique visual identity and served as a constant reminder of the family's connection to their ancestral past and traditional ways of life. The mill wasn't just a backdrop, but an integral part of the show's premise, representing George Apple's decision to leave behind his modern architect career in Los Angeles and return to his roots in rural Iowa. Living in a functioning mill meant the family was literally surrounded by history and craftsmanship every day, with the building itself serving as a character in the series. The mill's interior, with its exposed beams, old machinery, and rustic charm, created a warm, nostalgic atmosphere that fit perfectly with the show's themes of tradition and family values. It also provided practical storytelling opportunities, with various episodes incorporating the mill into their plots, whether through repairs needed, historical discoveries, or simply as a gathering place for the community. This choice of setting demonstrated the show's commitment to creating something visually and thematically distinct from other family dramas of the era, even if that distinctiveness wasn't enough to save it from cancellation. Fact 10. Sunday night. Death slot doomed it. Apple's Way faced an uphill battle from the very beginning due to its challenging time slot. CBS scheduled the show for Sunday nights at 8 o'clock, placing it directly against 2 powerhouse programs: NBC's The Wonderful World of Disney, which had been a Sunday night institution since 1969, and ABC's The FBI, a popular crime drama starring Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. This scheduling decision essentially doomed Apple's Way before it even had a chance to find its audience. Television insiders referred to certain time slots as death slots, positions in the schedule where shows went to fail because the competition was simply too strong. Sunday night at 8 was exactly that kind of slot in the mid-1970s. Disney's family-friendly programming had a loyal, multi-generational audience that had been tuning in for years, while the FBI attracted viewers who wanted more dramatic, action-oriented content. Apple's Way, which fell somewhere in between with its wholesome but contemporary family stories, struggled to carve out a distinct identity that could compete with these established hits. The ratings reflected this impossible situation, with Apple's Way consistently finishing third in its time slot. Despite CBS's initial commitment to the show, giving it a chance through 2 seasons, the network ultimately decided the time slot was too valuable to waste on a program that couldn't win its hour. The scheduling problem raises the question of whether Apple's Way might have succeeded if given a different night or time, though we'll never know the answer. Fact 11. Mid-series tone shift to social issues. When Apple's Way returned for its second season in the fall of 1974, viewers noticed something dramatically different about the show. CBS and the producers had completely rebooted the series' approach, abandoning the gentle, rural family stories of the first season in favor of harder-hitting episodes about controversial social issues. The second season tackled topics that seemed almost jarring compared to the first year's content: freedom of speech and censorship, drug use among teenagers, terminal illness and death, and other subjects that pushed the boundaries of what viewers expected from a family drama. This shift was likely an attempt to make the show more relevant and competitive, appealing to the socially conscious audiences of the mid-1970s who were interested in television that addressed real-world problems. However, the change may have backfired by alienating the show's core audience, who had been drawn to its wholesome, comforting stories. The tonal shift also created an identity crisis for Apple's Way. Was it supposed to be a nostalgic Walton-style family drama or a contemporary issue-oriented series like All in the Family? By trying to be both, it succeeded at being neither. The second season's episodes felt disconnected from the first season's establishing stories, as if the writers had decided their original concept wasn't working and scrambled to find something that would. Unfortunately, this drastic change in direction didn't improve the ratings, and the show was canceled midway through its second season, ending its run after just 43 episodes total. Fact 12. The town was named after the family. The fictional setting of Apple's Way carried a detail that emphasized just how deeply rooted the Apple family was in their Iowa community. The town itself was named after them. Appleton, Iowa, where the series took place, was supposedly founded by George Apple's ancestors generations earlier, meaning his family had been there from the very beginning. This backstory gave the show's premise additional weight, explaining why George felt such a strong pull to return to this particular place after years of living and working in Los Angeles. It wasn't just nostalgia or a desire for small-town life that brought him back. It was a sense of legacy and responsibility to the community his family had established. The name connection also created interesting storytelling dynamics, as George wasn't just another resident, but essentially hometown royalty, someone whose family name was literally on every sign and map. This detail positioned the Apples as pillars of the community, with a special status that came with both privileges and expectations. It also made George's tree protest in the pilot episode even more meaningful, as he was fighting to preserve not just his personal family history, but the heritage of the entire town. The Appleton naming was a clever way to instantly establish the family's importance and connection to their environment, though it also added pressure to live up to their historical legacy in every episode's storyline. Fact 13. Milton Bradley made a board game. Despite its poor ratings and short run, Apple's Way somehow inspired Milton Bradley to create an official board game in 1974. The game came in a bright, hot pink box featuring photos of the cast members and promised to bring the wholesome family drama experience into living rooms across America. This merchandising decision seems baffling in retrospect, given that the show was struggling to find an audience on television. Board game adaptations of TV shows were common in the 1970s, when networks and toy companies regularly partnered to extend a show's brand beyond the screen. However, these games were typically created for hit shows with proven audiences, not struggling series that would be canceled within 2 years. The existence of the Apple's Way board game suggests that either CBS or Milton Bradley had high hopes for the show's success and moved forward with merchandising before the ratings came in, or that Milton Bradley had already committed to producing the game before realizing the show wouldn't last. Today, the Apple's Way board game has become a collectible curiosity, an artifact from a forgotten show that's more interesting for what it represents than for any gameplay value. The bright pink packaging and earnest family imagery capture a particular moment in 1970s television culture when networks believed wholesome family entertainment could compete with the more edgy and contemporary programming that was starting to dominate the airwaves. Finding a copy of this game now is like discovering a time capsule from an era when TV shows inspired board games almost as a matter of course. Fact 14. Started. As Perry Mason's replacement Apple's Way wasn't originally planned as a series that would premiere at the beginning of a television season. Instead, it was created specifically as a mid-season replacement, designed to fill a hole in CBS's schedule left by another failed show. The new Perry Mason, a revival of the classic legal drama, had premiered in September of 1973, with hopes of recapturing the success of the original series that had run from 1957 to 1966. However, the new version starring Monty Markham instead of Raymond Burr failed to connect with audiences and was quickly canceled after just 15 episodes. CBS needed something to fill that Sunday nighttime slot, and Earl Hamner Jr.'s contemporary family drama seemed like a safer bet. The network hoped that Hamner's track record with the Waltons would translate into success with this similar show. Apple's Way premiered on February 10, 1974, taking over the slot that Perry Mason had vacated. The fact that it was created as a replacement rather than a carefully planned fall premiere may have contributed to some of its challenges, as mid-season replacements often struggled to build audiences without the promotional push and viewer sampling that came with the start of a new television season. Being a replacement also meant the show was stepping into a time slot that had already been proven problematic, as Perry Mason's failure demonstrated that Sunday nights were difficult for certain types of programming. Fact 15. Ronnie Cox and Frances Lee McCain reunited. Nearly 2 decades after Apple's Way ended, the two actors who had played George and Barbara Apple got to work together again as a married couple on television. Ronnie Cox and Frances Lee McCain, who had portrayed the wholesome parents at the center of Apple's Way, were both cast in Second Chances, a Lorimar Productions drama that aired on CBS starting in 1993. This reunion was likely more than coincidence, as casting directors and producers often like to reunite actors who had demonstrated good chemistry in previous projects. In Second Chances, Cox and McCain played completely different characters in a completely different type of show, but their familiarity with each other from working together in the 1970s probably helped them fall back into a comfortable rhythm as an on-screen couple. By the time Second Chances aired, both actors had built substantial television careers beyond their work on Apple's Way. Cox had become known for his roles in films like Deliverance and RoboCop, and had appeared in numerous TV series, while McCain had continued steady work in both television and film throughout the 1980s and early 90s. The fact that they ended up playing spouses again after so many years speaks to the small world nature of the television industry, where actors often find themselves working together multiple times across different projects over the course of their careers. For fans who remembered Apple's Way, seeing Cox and McCain together again must have been a pleasant surprise, even if the two shows were otherwise unconnected.